So this is a very short introduction to accounting for Odooers, those people who are using Odoo to do their accounting. And I've had some small business owners saying, "Oh, I just can't get my head around accounting. I just don't do accounting." And yes, you don't need to do the day-to-day stuff, but you have to understand it because there's a lot of valuable information about your business which is embedded in your financial statements. So we'll just have a look at a couple of equations, and one of them is this one, which is P equals A minus L. So this means proprietorship is equal to assets minus liabilities. So proprietorship is your wealth. If as a business owner, it's your wealth. It's the value of the business. And the long and the short of it is that basically it's quite a simple equation. You've got some assets and you've what you own, and some liabilities, and that's what you owe. So in an accounting term, the difference between those two is your equity, or sometimes called proprietorship. So there's another equation which is also pretty important, which is pi equals I minus E. So profit is equal to income less expenses. So that might sound familiar to you. So tying these two formulas together is, I ask you the question is, how do you increase your proprietorship? And the answer to that is you create wealth by running your business at a profit. So the profit incrementally adds to the value of the business. So in accounting, we do double entry accounting in this day and age. So in this stage, what this means is that for every financial transactions, there's two sides to it. There's a debit and a credit, and they must be equal. And that way that the total debits that have been passed to the company and the total debits passed to a company during a given time frame just must equal. They must be the same. It just can't happen any other way. So what constitutes debits and credits? And this little list is probably worth thinking about because it's a simple way of deciding what needs to be debited and what needs to be credited if you ever have to pass a manual journal entry. So an increase in asset is a debit, an increase in a liability is a credit. So think back to that P equals A minus L. So the asset side is a debit and the liability side is a credit. So, and then an increase in income. So when you bank some money and you've had some income from a sale, the income is a credit. And the increase in an expense. So if you pay an insurance bill or something, that's quite clearly an expense. So that will be a debit. Now, there's one thing that is quite head scratching in this, is that if we think about a bank account, then a bank account is an asset. But hang on, you say, when I look at my bank statement, it shows that it is a credit. Well, and so why is this? Well, it's actually because your bank has produced your bank statement in terms of what it looks like to them. So if you've got some money in your bank account, then you have a debit balance, and then correspondingly the bank owes that money, and they have to make it available to you at any time. So then that then says that it's a credit on their side of the ledger. So it's a debit for us at the bank, when there's money in the bank, but it's a credit to the bank, and that's where your bank statement's coming from. So the other report that's worth mentioning is a trial balance. The trial balance, according to Xero, is a financial report showing the closing balances of all accounts in the general ledger at a point in time. And the balances of all ledgers are separated into debit and credit account columns, and by definition, due to double entry accounting, the totals of the debits and the credits must be equal. And if they're not equal, there's an error in your system somewhere. Now, I've never seen an error in an Odoo trial balance. I actually, years ago, before computers were widespread, I had a time as in banking. And in banking, we used to analyze customers' balance sheets. And we'd take a balance sheet and put it into a standard format on a bank form. These days it was all handwritten. And I couldn't get this trial balance to balance. I couldn't get the balance sheet to balance. And eventually, I grabbed a calculator, because we didn't have spreadsheets. I grabbed a calculator and I checked the trial balance with a calculator. I checked the balance sheet with a calculator, and to my surprise, the accountant who had produced these figures had sent figures in with an error, and they had hand typed that set of accounts, so they masked and obscured this error, and they had to do hand typed balance sheets for 2 years because of the reports showed this year and next year on the same thing. So hopefully those days are well and truly gone with the computing system. It certainly won't be an issue if you're doing your accounting in Odoo. So I wanted to just mention that another way of thinking of a trial balance is that it's just the raw data that's been summarized and before any reports are created. So the profit and loss account and balance sheets are actually a kind of a presentation layer that's overlaid over that raw trial balance data. So this is the very short summary that I wanted to go through with you, is the very basics of accounting. And we'll see that as we go through in Odoo as time goes on.